Hey guys, I'm gonna give people maybe another minute to hop on. I'm so excited. You guys have no idea. um, okay, so I hope that you have your pen and paper, and if you have questions to ask me, you can drop it in the chat box, and I will get to those questions. And we're gonna dive right in. Like I said, I'm gonna give everyone another minute or so. I'm also going to be sending this recording to everyone. Um, so yeah. Okay, so you guys, my name is Summer McLean. I'm the owner of My Simply Perfect Events and the owner of the Academy for Wedding and Event Planners. And we're going to start with, let's see. Sorry, I have like all these questions coming in right now. And like I said, if you guys have a question or something, then drop it in the chat box and we'll just go from there, okay? So I want to talk about the essentials of getting started in the wedding business. A lot of my students have this issue. A lot of people feel like they don't know how to get started, right? They feel very lost. They're like, I don't know how to start. I don't know where to start. So a couple things that I want to go over. This is how I feel that a lot of people should even just begin, okay? So first of all, the name of your company. You got to find a name. Also do some research to make sure that you're not, I mean, my name is pretty cliche. It's like My Simply Perfect Events, but I've been doing this over 12 years. So there weren't a ton of like My Simply Perfect, it's actually My Simply Perfect because there were a couple Simply Perfects. Anyway, do a little bit of research. And then once you have the name of your company, now it's time to go ahead and reserve your name on Instagram. I really, really believe in forward movement. And I think that I feel that forward movement is essential in what we do, right? It's essential in business, also when it comes to confidence, because I do know that a lot of people really struggle when it comes to confidence when it's starting something new. Also, a lot of people that I've spoken to, they're like, they feel like this isn't a place for them, right? That the wedding and event industry isn't a place for them. And I'm like, it's a place for us, right? Another thing that I really, really want to dive into, there are a lot of people who they want to do design as well. And a lot of people, like, you can see, setting up, like you can see the flowers, you can see the table linens and da 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 da. You can see all those things. And a lot of people are really confused and lost as to how they're lost as to how that stuff happens, if that makes any sense. So a lot of people have said to me, and when I say a lot of people, I've spoken to like hundreds of people. Okay, so I've spoken to hundreds of potential students, plenty of students, and a lot of people get very confused about how that stuff happens. And so a couple people said that they were, more than a couple, said that they one of their biggest hurdles was getting funding so that they can get linens and that they could get, vases and candles and candle holders and all sorts of stuff, right? And, every time people say that, I'm like, well, why do you have to have that? And oftentimes, again, they say, because, I want to be the one, I want to set things up. And they don't realize that you can design a wedding without being the one to set everything up, right? So that's why vendor relationships are important. Okay, so again, just to reiterate so that it makes sense to everybody. And another thing, I'm trying to remove the hurdles that you may have to start your career in wedding planning. Okay, so again, the idea that you have to have like a warehouse full of vases and linens and tables and this and that and the other, that's not the case, right? That's not what has to happen. So I always say, let the experts be the experts, right? So if you go to my website, if you've seen my Instagram, My Simply Perfect, my Simply Perfect everything, actually, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, all that stuff, you'll see that I'm not putting the flowers on the table, right? But I am designing. Okay. So again, if the hurdle in your mind is, I need to get funding so that I can go ahead and purchase all these materials, no. There are plenty of florists who also do decor. So oftentimes I'll say, a class last night I was having with somebody and I explained to them, well, you can just get the florist to do it. And they said, oh, but I want to have candles and vases and this and that and the other. And I'm like, listen, that's what a florist will provide. Okay. When you step into design a wedding, again, you have to find a floral company or a design company that you can work with, right? So again, that's one of those hurdles to get out of your way. And if you eventually really want to do that, if you want to be putting the flowers together and you want to be putting the linens on the table and you want to be doing those things, then that's fine. But I always tell people just to start, because again, I'm trying to get those hurdles out of the way, right? So just to start, go ahead and find a company. And again, you tell them what to do. I don't do any flowers, but I tell them exactly what I want and they provide exactly what I want, right? I'm going to pull up my website real quick. And I'm going to share it with you guys because I want to go over something real quick. I want to show you an example of that. So here we go. Okay, so this is my website. And another thing, do not think that you have to have a website like this to start. We're going to talk about websites and stuff like that in a minute, but I don't want anything that I'm showing you to be intimidating. If anything, I want you to feel encouraged by everything that I'm showing you. Okay? I want you to feel encouraged. I want you to be like, oh, okay. Not like one day I'll be there. Don't do that. Okay, because we all start somewhere, right? I didn't just start having bomb weddings like this, right? Sorry, not to toot my own horn. Sorry. Excuse me. Okay, so this is one of the weddings. I love all my weddings, but I bring this up design-wise because this is an escort card table. Also, You'll learn that lingo, like wedding planner lingo, event planner lingo is really important. So when someone says an escort card table or an escort card or whatever, you have to understand that the escort card is, it's the card that tells you exactly what seat you're going to be sitting in at what table. Okay. And then the seating, like your seating chart, like this is a seating chart. And the cards that are on here just tell you what table you're going to be sitting in. Anyway, this is like planner lingo. But my point is I knew that I wanted this design for this client's wedding. I knew I wanted these leaves. I had no idea what the name of the leaves were, but I looked through Instagram. They're called Monstera leaves. I found that out. And I was at Hobby Lobby. I remember I was at Hobby Lobby. I grabbed an envelope. We use like the back of envelopes all the time. I grabbed an envelope and I went ahead and I did like a chicken scratch. And I was like, this is what I want. I draw like, I'm not an artist. Like it's awful, right? Really, really bad. She got exactly what I wanted. And this is from the florist, right? They knew exactly what I wanted. I said, I want these big leaves. I want there to be a display full of these leaves, painted gold. Also, I really wanted big, ridiculous centerpieces. And again, I'm showing you this so that you can understand. I didn't place any of this stuff, right? But I designed it all, okay? These chairs, actually these chair covers, I used at another event, and I just had more made because these people had more people, this couple had more people at their wedding. Anyway, but my point is, again, don't let the fact that you think that you have to purchase these things and have them sitting in a warehouse stop you from planning, because that's not what it is. Again, I didn't place any of this, but I designed it all, okay? Let's go back. Okay. So a couple other things. Anyone have questions yet? No. Okay. And that's fine, because I get excited and then I just start rambling. Okay, another thing that I really want to hit on is, okay, so you say, how do I get established, right? I don't have any I don't have any experience. Okay, let me tell you how I got experience. So the first time that I did a wedding, it was free and it was my friend's wedding. And like everybody in our friend group was getting married and everyone was young and no one knew what they were doing. And I was like, okay, like, okay, I guess I'll help, right? And sometimes you really, really have to put your ego or your pride or whatever it is that's stopping you from doing an event for free, whatever that is, put it to the side, okay? Because some of the events that I've done for free or even at a discount, I'll talk about discounts too, but I don't recommend them so much right now, but I learned a lot from, and I had beautiful photos from it, okay? Something I always say is that if you don't have the photos, you didn't do the wedding. If you don't have the photos, you didn't do the party, okay? That's for any event that you do. Also, I want to tell you guys, whoever is on here who wants to do events and not weddings, or they want to do events more than weddings, something to understand is that weddings and events, the elements are the same, right? It's just the details that are different. So let me explain. You need a caterer, you need a venue, you need a DJ, right? You have a guest list, you need a photographer. You need those for weddings and events. So sometimes the budgets are different for events. If you do corporate events, there's more money in corporate events. There's a lot of money in corporate events. And one of the reasons why is because you can go to a corporation and you can say, this is my price. And they don't have, they're like, okay, fine, that's fine. Or they may say, they may try to talk to you about your price. But when it comes to weddings, mom's paying for it, dad's paying for it, the couple's paying for it. When it comes to a corporation, the corporation's paying for it. Okay, and normally if they're having someone, come in and do the event, they just want it handled. Okay. But again, so this whole idea that, in order to get started, I have to have all this experience. Nope. So this is what I tell my students all the time. If you've done an event for family or friends, because that's how a lot of us start. That's how a lot of us start, right? What pictures do you have on your iPhone or your Android? Sorry. What pictures do you have on there? Do you have anything at all? If you have nothing, okay, then the next goal is you need to volunteer for somebody's event. And again, I know it's going to suck because you're like, I'm doing this work and I'm not getting paid. It doesn't matter because you need to be able to have proof of your work, right? You need to be able to show people because again, something I say constantly, if I don't have the pictures, I didn't do the work. Okay. So if any of you are out there and you are going to do a baby shower or a church event or, a friend's wedding or anything like that, not only do you want to get the photos, if there's a professional photographer, you want to make sure to get the photos from them. Take some photos with your phone. And then you're going to slap that onto your Instagram. You're going to slap that onto your Facebook, right? Because you want to show, I have something. Again, we didn't all start like this. I have like all these posts on my page. I didn't start there, okay? And I'm not the planner who's going to pretend that I did. We all had to stumble through. Like I said, in many of my videos, I've been doing this over 12 years, and I had to stumble through. And I was like, I don't know what's what. And that's why, I started off telling you guys, you don't have to purchase all of these materials in order to start. Because, you sit and you watch people doing something, right? So you go, okay, I see this event, I see this wedding, it's really beautiful, I see these flowers. And sometimes it's hard to put the pieces together. How did flowers get there? So when planners are saying, I designed the wedding, you're going, okay, so did they also do the flowers? Did they also do this? Okay. All right. I want to talk about vendors and vendor relationships and how important they are. So I touched on getting the photos from the photographer. Listen, it is an industry standard. It is an industry courtesy that the planner gets all the photos for free. Okay. I'm going to say that again, that the planner should get all the photos for free. When I first started, literally 12 years ago, I did this stunning wedding. It was like everything was like pink and white. The couple was like super attractive. It was like super bomb. The photographer was not so bomb. And I didn't know that it was like an industry standard, right? I didn't know that it was like an industry courtesy. So what happened was, of course I wanted to see the photos. It was beautiful. Now I would look at the pictures and be like, oh, that's pretty. You know what I mean? But anyway, but it was really beautiful at the time. It still is beautiful. Anyway. And this guy was like, the photographer, he said, hey, listen, I'm not just going to give you my work for free. I was like, what? And what people need to understand that as the planners, as the wedding and event planners, they give us the photos. We use it in our marketing. So we use it on our Instagram and our Facebook. We submit it to magazines and to blogs in order to get published, right? So they get, and you always give vendor credit. You always give vendor credit. And if you don't give full vendor credit, you always give the photographer credit. So this fool was like, nope. He was like, listen, I'm not going to give you my work for free. So I said, well, how much is it going to be? He wanted to charge me $2,000. And I'm like, I'm not the client. You know what I mean? And I was so upset. I was so upset because it was this really beautiful wedding and I didn't really have a ton of work, and it was like a diverse couple. And so I said to him, hey, listen, so what if I pay and I don't like the photos? He said, I'll send you a couple photos to look at. He sends me 5 pixelated photos. So meaning they were like blurry. Like I couldn't even see what the quality of the photo was. And I was I can't even tell you how upset I was. I can. This is how upset I was. And again, it's been 12 years. If I, have an inquiry from a client or if someone wants to hire me and he's their photographer, I don't work with him. Also because he was a total jerk during that time. But again, if I don't have the photos, I didn't do the wedding. Okay? If I don't have the photos, I didn't do the event. So I'm not going to be sitting here for a year and a half helping, working on this event, working every single detail of this event and having no proof of it. So, and I've had plenty of people who will cancel their contracts with him because they want to work with me. And again, this is one of those vendor relationships things, right? So something else that, that you can do when you're just starting in the industry when it comes to vendor relationships, and this is actually something that I have my students do. So I always tell them, okay, how to book your client. Okay, so you want to seem knowledgeable. So when you go to Costco and you're walking by and then they give you, or Trader Joe's, and then they give you like a little sample of something and all of a sudden you're like, I need this cauliflower broccoli chip. You know what I mean? You're like, I didn't know I needed it, but now I do, and that's what the sample does. Okay, so booking your client, getting in with vendors, this is how it happens. So I always tell my clients, do some research. Okay, so you got to do some research. Find out the venues in your area that are number one, super popular. Everybody wants to get married at these venues or whatever. They're just venues that stand out to you. If you don't know of any venues that are super popular or whatever, go to your favorite blog or find a favorite blog. Look up your city and start looking at the venues. Okay, so I'm going to say this again. If you don't have a favorite blog, if you don't know of venues in your area, and this also trickles down to vendors, but right now I'm talking about venues. What you want to do is you want to go to your favorite blog, you want to find a blog, look up venues in your area, in your city or in your, in the closest, biggest city, I suppose, right? Go ahead, email them. You don't have to have a website yet. Email them and say, hey, I have a client looking to get married. You don't have to say a date. You could just say, I have a client looking to get married. If you can send me your package information. That's when you study the information. And I'll get back to the Costco thing. Because that's when you study the information. Because something you'll learn is that when you first start inquiring, and let's say like one of your clients, they want to get married at the Georgian Terrace in Atlanta, Georgia, right? So what happens is, and I don't know why venues do this, it drives me insane. So venues that have in-house catering, it just drives me insane. They send like 20 pages of their menu. It's so ridiculous. It's confusing. The pricing doesn't make sense, right? So what I started doing, because it was confusing to me too, what I started doing was I would have the coordinator at the venue, I would have them put together some sort of a sample menu, right? So I would say, a lot of times in Atlanta, they want to have like some fancy Southern flair, right? So it's like fancy Southern food, right? And so I would tell them, this is our budget, and I want you to go ahead and make a menu. Because again, they're the experts, and they're the ones who can they know how to pick and pull and blah, 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 so that if your client's budget is, 30,000 or 15,000 or 10,000, right? That they're not giving you a menu, and then your client goes through and picks out their menu, and then we come to find out that, it ends up being $25,000 for food. And this has happened many times, right? So again, find the venues and do some research. Hey, I would love some package information. I have a client. You can even say I'm doing research on venues, for some of my clients, whatever. What you want to pay attention to, is the venue cheaper on a Sunday or a Friday? Okay. Do you have to stick to their preferred vendors list? What's the alcohol package? Okay, so all this stuff is so important because, so there's a venue in Atlanta. I'm out of Atlanta, so that's why I keep talking about Atlanta. But there's a venue in Atlanta, and it's so ridiculous. They're like, it's $3,500, or no, it's $2,500, and you're like, wow, like this is such a great space. Like, yeah, this is great. Okay. What they don't tell you is that if you don't use their preferred, right? So we like up a notch. If you don't use their preferred vendor, caterer, that it's an extra $1,000. Oh, okay. So we went from 25 to 35. Okay. Also, if all of your vendors are not on their preferred vendors list, right? So we're outside of preferred for caterers. I know it sounds ridiculous, but this is what it is. This is actually something that happened to my client. If you use a vendor outside of someone on their preferred vendors list, then it's another $1,000. So there are so many stipulations. And again, if you don't know how to read contracts or if you don't know what to look for, it's confusing. And so what happens is you're sitting there, all right, you've gotten someone who says, hey, listen, Veronica, I would love to meet with you. I want to talk to you about my wedding. And you're like, great, let's do it. You go to a Starbucks. Nothing wrong with going to Starbucks, guys. I'm going to tell you a little secret, too, about meeting up at Starbucks that one of my students just told me. She's like, that really worked. I'm like, I know. That's why I tell you this stuff. But you're sitting there at Starbucks. You say, hey, so tell me what your dream venue is, right? Tell me, what is your dream venue? And then they say, the Georgian Terrace, whatever, the Biltmore in Atlanta. And you say, what's your budget? So let's say their budget fits within, how much it is to get married at the Biltmore, right? Then you say, well, what's your guest count? Oh, well, our guest count is about 50 people. Well, you have to have enough knowledge to know that 50 people, that the ballrooms at the Biltmore it's going to dwarf their group, right? So let's say there's another venue, Ventana's in Atlanta, Georgia. And your clients come to you and say, our budget's $15,000. Our dream place is Ventana's. Actually, let's say it's $30,000. Our dream place is in Ventana's. So number one, you're like, oh, great, Ventana's. They can get married. That's a good budget for Ventana's. And then you say, well, what's your guest count? And they say, well, our guest count is about 250. You have to have the knowledge to know right then and there, oh, well, actually, Ventana's, the most it can hold is 175. So this is what I mean by, it's like the Costco trick. You got to give them a little taste. You got to give them a little sample, right? So what happens is, and also you get to flex a little bit. So this is what I mean by you got to do some research. So if they say, you can also say, well, actually, you know what? At the Biltmore, if you get married on a Friday or a Sunday, you don't have an alcohol minimum. Am I losing anybody? I feel like I might be losing people, but I just want you to try to follow me. It's all going to come together because this is one of those things that I promise you, it's so much. Wedding planning is and event planning. It's so much more than making sure that people are in a line, and that we have pretty flowers. Like, it's so much more than all that stuff. And this is the stuff that they don't tell you, right? This is the stuff that you're like, I don't know how any of this is done, okay? So let's say you're sitting in a meeting. We're going back to vendor relationships. Somehow you get on a list. And when I say somehow, again, there are networking events. And one way that you can get on a list to be invited to networking events, contact the coordinator at this hotel, at that hotel, at this venue, at that venue, right? If there's a local magazine that has weddings and events in there every month, you contact their editor. Hey, I'm a wedding planner in the area. I would love to be notified of the events that you have. Start following some of your favorite vendors in your city, okay? Also, again, follow some of your favorite vendors because let's say that this DJ is going to be spinning at some networking event. And of course, they're going to post it because they want to flex, right? They want to be like, hey, I'm going to be at this event. That's when you go, okay? You show up and don't be intimidated and don't feel like, oh, I don't have any work to show. We're not all sitting around with our phones going, look at the wedding I just did. It's not that type of party. But you go and you start to show your face and you start to meet people. Again, you could say, yeah, I'm just starting out. It's great because, again, we all started from somewhere, okay? So I'm going to go back because I know I get excited. I'm going to go back just so that this really sinks in for you. I want you to do research on the venues in your area that, again, they're popular venues. If you don't know of popular venues, look up a blog. Go to Style Me Pretty. Go to Munaluchi Bride, okay? Munaluchi is Munaluchi. If you're not following Style Me Pretty or Munaluchi on Instagram, get on it, okay? Those are both great resources, okay? Find some venues and go ahead and let them know, I'm interested in your package information for clients. Again, you don't have to have a client right then and there. It's eventually you want to give it to some clients, okay? And so that you can start looking over what people send you so that you're not lost when you get clients, okay? Because like I said, I was super lost and I'm like, here's the list, you know what I mean? Here's what I got from the venue and it's gibberish because I don't understand it. But again, you want to know what's what. Okay, great. So now you're sitting at a meeting with a potential client. Someone at work referred them to you. Someone at your church referred you, right? So you're sitting there, and again, you want to have enough knowledge. And also, if they say a venue that you've never heard of, just say, oh, I've never heard of that, but yeah, I'll do a little bit of research, right? But if you're going to these networking events, and eventually, you get on a first name basis with a lot of them, which, again, you're a planner. People want to be on your team. Why? Because as planners, we bring in money, okay? They care, like they'll give better customer service to us as planners than they will to paying clients. And I know that sounds so crazy, but we're the ones who are like, if we had a bad experience, I'm not gonna have my clients go back to your place. And I know it sounds so crazy, but once you guys start planning and you guys start realizing that, everybody wants to get in with the planners because again, our clients trust us, they listen to us, and we're in charge, okay? So if you're sitting there, this is something I do all the time. So I'll be sitting there in a meeting with a client and then they'll say, I love Ventanas. I love Ventanas so much, but we're looking at September 22nd, okay? Well, I know that Hannah is the lead coordinator at Ventanas. I have Hannah's email address and I have Hannah's cell phone number. This stuff is not hard to get, guys. Okay, that's another thing. Like, you don't have to, go to networking events for years to get their contact information. Even if you don't have their cell phone number, say, oh yeah, Hannah, Yeah. And then the person goes, oh, yeah, I talked to Hannah. Yeah, I emailed her. It's that familiarity, right? So you get to flex a little bit, but it also shows like you know what you're doing. So even if you don't have a ton of weddings, whatever, you're like, oh, I know that Hannah's the contact over there. You don't even have to be friends with Hannah to know, right? So I'll say, oh, well, I'll email her real quick. Or, let me text her real quick. I was talking to her earlier today. Again, everything is like subliminal, right? Because again, we want them to know, they're trusting us. And we have to let them know, aside from my Instagram, aside from my website, aside from being a writer, aside from any of this stuff, I know what I'm doing and I'm also in there, right? Again, that stuff just helps you flex. But also do research. Again, I cannot stress this enough. Find photographers that you love, okay? Find DJs, photographers' work that you love. Find DJs. Like I said, you will start to pick up on who's popular. And again, popular, it's all relative. But, you'll start to see people, who are around a lot. That's who you want to start referring people to, okay? Do we have any questions at this point? Okay. And also, if you're talking, everyone's muted. So if you do have a question, like I said, pop into the chat box. And okay, I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't ignoring anyone. Okay. Let's see. I get so excited. Another thing. All right. So you guys, someone asked me, how do I make money at the beginning stages of my business, right? And so oftentimes, this is something one of my students is having a really hard time with. And it took me a minute to understand what was going on. And when I did, I was like, oh, wait, we got to stop that immediately. So what was happening is she would tell the clients, your event is going to be $5,000. And that's where she would get the food. She would get the linens and the flowers and all this stuff. She didn't have her fee in there because she always was like, if there's money left over, then that'll be my fee. And I'm like, whoa, hold on. So just because you tell someone this is how much your event is going to be, this is how I do it. I don't want to say your event's going to cost $30,000 and then it ends up being $35,000. So what I do when I sit down with clients, I find out what their budget is. And also, going back to my student, is that it was an issue of her overextending herself because I understand the feeling of desperation at the beginning. So she was feeling kind of desperate, and she's done this a lot. And I'm like, you have to stop doing this, right? So she puts herself all the way out there. And so let's say they tell her my budget's $2,000 and she goes, okay, no problem. She ends up spending money. And I'm like, girl, do not spend your coins on anybody's event, right? So this is how I do it. You tell me what your budget is. And I always ask, is there, I'm going to show you guys this in a minute, actually, but, if they say my budget's $5,000, then we'll just say. And then you have to ask them, is it really 5,000? Is it 5,001? Because a lot of what our job is managing expectations. Okay. And so a lot of times people will say, well, okay, actually my budget's 15,000, but we want to stick as close to 5,000 as possible. That's when you go ahead and let them know, listen, there's a huge difference between a $5,000 budget and a $15,000 budget. And so we need to come to like a middle ground, right? And so what I do is they tell me what the budget is and I work based on their budget. But I have the invoices and things like that sent to my clients. So the vendors, they'll send the invoices to me and I send them to the client so that they can handle it. So that there isn't a question between, I'm not hoping that I'm going to get paid my fee later, right? This is my fee and this is how much the tables and chairs and linens and flowers are if you want them. So I hope I'm making sense there. So again, there's this idea that as planners that we are miracle workers. And again, there's a lot that we can do. We do make some miracles happen, right? But there's this idea that when people come to us and they say, this is how much I have for my budget, that we have to make it work. And that's not what it is, right? So if you're not making any money on your events and you're putting out money, why are you putting out money? Are you putting out money because you're hoping to get great pictures? Because that's even something that they were saying, like I'm putting out a ton of money and I'm not making any money, and I'm like, well, okay, well, where are the pictures? And they have nothing to show for it. So again, you don't want to overextend yourself out of desperation. And like I said, I've been there and I understand that. But you'll have one really bad situation if you don't listen to what I'm saying. You'll have one really bad situation where you're like, wow, I just worked for a year and a half and I spent $2,000 on this person's event and they didn't appreciate it or they didn't enjoy it. Unnecessary. Let's see. Anyone questions? Anyone questions? All right. Okay, so let me see. How and where to get clients. This is people's, it's like the number one, right? It's the number one thing. How and where do I get clients? I'll tell you this. It is hard to get clients. It's hard to find clients at the beginning, but social media is major, right? Social media isn't the only thing we have, but it's major. Again, what have I been stressing? Photos, 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 because that's really our resume. Photos are our resume, period. Okay? So how and where to get clients? Well, you might want to start off at church. You want to go ahead and you want to put the word out, right? Get some business cards. Get a social media presence. And when I say presence, I mean get a Facebook, get a Twitter, right? Again, you don't have to have a ton of things on there, but you want to show that you're actually doing something. Get some business cards, leave them at Starbucks. My very first paying client was from a Starbucks. I was on my way to this wedding that I, like I said, did for free. And I had just gotten my business cards and I stopped at Starbucks real quick on the way to the rehearsal. And I was so excited and like so nervous, right? I took my business card and I tacked it up on the board and I got called immediately. And I was like, what is this about? But right now with that was 12 years ago. With social media now, listen, put stuff out there. Also, something I want you guys or anyone to stop doing when it's engagement season. I see wedding planners do this all the time. They go, congratulations to all the couples out there. If you need a planner, give us a call. That is one of the most boring sales pitches ever. Okay? You want to appeal to the fact that they're engaged and that it's an exciting time. And again, this is all stuff you'll have to work with and work through, and this is stuff that I work with my students. But to say congratulations to all the engaged couples, to the newly engaged couples, give us a call. What is appealing about that? Nothing. You got to learn how to finesse your offer, right? You got to learn how to finesse your business and finesse what it is, because again, you don't have a ton of work at the beginning, right? Go live on Instagram. I am really bad at going live. I mean, not recently. I've been going live a lot recently. It's because I'm trying to really break out of whatever shell I'm apparently in. But go live on Instagram. Hey guys, do Wedding Wednesday. Just anything. But like I said, make it your own thing, but create a presence. I think a lot of us who are a little too addicted to social media, I know that I am, I wake up in the morning and I'm like, let me look at my stories. Or before I go to bed, I'm like, let me look at my Insta stories. And there are people that I look at every day. And there are people whose Insta stories I'm excited to see every day. Well, if you're putting yourself out there and you're using correct hashtags and things like that, people are going to start to see you, right? Something I do want to do, though, I want to go into the first meeting. I want to do a first meeting checklist, right? Let me see. Let me pull this up. And I want to do this first meeting checklist so that you guys understand. Here it is. So these are the questions that I ask. Here we go. So these are some of the questions that I ask when I sit down with clients. And a lot of the stuff might seem super simple, like, is that all you ask? I'm like, yep. This is what I ask, but it's super effective. Now, again, remember I said the thing about Starbucks? Remember how I was like, meet at Starbucks and I'm going to tell you guys something later? So I was telling one of my students about 2 weeks ago that meet at Starbucks, don't, because she was like, I got to find an office. And I was like, girl, what do you mean you got to find an office? That's crazy. No, you don't. Like meet at a coffee shop. She's in Canada. Anyway, I don't know why I told you that, but anyway, she's in Canada. So, I told her, I said, listen, you meet them at Starbucks, you get there early, you get there before they do, of course, that you can find a comfortable seat or any coffee shop that you love, right? And, so that you can find an open table and so that it's comfortable and that you're not rushing. Listen, the worst thing, especially on wedding day or event day, is to be running late, because when you're rushing, it sets the whole day, right? And so when I'm meeting up with potential clients, I never rush. I never ever rush, because it just makes me nervous and it gets my energy off and I can't do my best. So anyway, so I told her, I said, but listen, when you get there, order your coffee or whatever it is that you're going to drink, and then get a gift card. I didn't realize how I didn't realize how much of an impact this was going to have, because this is just how I do it. So, you don't want to meet them for lunch or dinner. That's like a pretty big investment into someone, because if you're if you're meeting up with them, you're going to pay. And, a cup of coffee, that can be in your marketing budget, but, don't take anybody out to dinner and don't take them out to lunch, because again, it can get pretty expensive, and, save that part of your budget for something else. Anyway, so I told her, get the card, put some money on it, 20, 25 bucks, 50 bucks, whatever. And then when they come in, say, hey guys, go ahead and grab your coffee, because you don't want them to feel uncomfortable. You have your drink, you're ready to go. Go ahead and grab your coffee, and then give them the card, right? You give them the card. And the reason why I do it like that is because, first of all, it's already planned. But second of all, guys, most men aren't going to feel comfortable with like a woman that they don't know, or with a woman, period. And I know that this sounds antiquated. It sounds like whatever, but it's just my experience that a lot of men aren't, feeling me paying for their coffee or their whatever, right? And I just want them to feel comfortable. And it's also super relaxed, right? So I'm like, oh, here, go ahead and take the card. So the other day, my student was like, oh my God, I used your idea for the gift card and it worked perfectly. And they were just so excited. And I was like, what? I didn't know what she was talking about at first. And I was like, gift card? It took me a minute and I was like, oh, you mean at Starbucks? Because I just didn't realize, like, these are things that they're things that I just do, right? This is stuff that I've been doing for a long time. And she said that her client seemed super impressed. It gave her confidence. And she also was like, I'm a boss. Again, I know that sounds like a small, simple thing, but try it out, right? Okay, so here we go. How to book your bride and groom. Ask questions and listen. I cannot stress how important it is to listen. Because as, brides and grooms, they want to talk about themselves. It's the truth. They want to talk about themselves. They want to talk about their engagement. They want to do all that stuff. But there is nothing worse. And I know a lot of us have had this where we're venting to a friend or a boyfriend or a husband or whatever. And they're like, and you're like, oh, you're not even listening. You're not even listening to me. Okay. Excuse me. So you want to make sure to listen so that, again, the whole entire point isn't just to book them. You want to make them feel comfortable and blah, blah, blah. Okay. Always give them a bit of free advice. So this is what I was talking about, like with the Costco thing, right? So, they can say, I don't know, well, we're looking for some photographers and we haven't really found anyone and blah, blah, blah. And say, oh, well, have you looked at so-and-so and so-and-so? And then let them know, I'll email you their information. Yeah, they're amazing. I love them. Work with them. Great. So you give them a little bit of free advice. You give them some free vendors, again, because you give them some great vendors. It just shows that you're not holding on to information, right? You're not like, oh, I'm not going to give you anything. You have to book me before I tell you anything. It's kind of silly, right? But again, it shows your knowledge of the industry. Okay. Again, it's okay to meet at Starbucks. You don't need to spend money on an office before you're actually making money. And I probably should change that because I had an office, and it was, I mean, it was just a flex, really. You know what I mean? Like, I was like, oh, let's meet at my office. Please, like, we work from home most of the time. And, like, having an office, it was just an extra expense that was unnecessary. Um, okay, so attire. I feel like this is obvious, but I have to say it anyway. Um, you'll want to wear things that makes your bride, like, that'll want to make them work with you. So my, like, ace in the hole, I think that's the term. I'm like, I don't know. But my thing was, it's always Tory Burch flats. And I know that sounds so ridiculous, but they are, my brides always comment on them. Always. And I mean, yeah, if you know anything, Tory Burch, they're expensive and they're uncomfortable. Like, it takes way too long to break them in. Every single time I have a new client meeting, they're always like, oh, I like your Tory Burches. It's like, you're like, oh, thanks. But it's just one of those things. You know what I mean? Like, I made the mistake early in my career. I was meeting up with some clients at their estate because they were going to get married, whatever, at this private estate. And I was like, you know what? I have my own company and I can wear whatever I want. It was so ridiculous. I was way too casual. Like, I did not look professional at all. And I mean, who knows why I didn't, book it, but I really feel like I would have had a better chance if I didn't show up looking like a troll. I don't think I look like a troll, but anyway. And this, again, I know this sounds crazy. Always have your nails done. This is something that I learned. So I used to not have my nails done before weddings, but I always have my nails done. And people always comment on them. It's honestly the weirdest thing. Like, my eyebrows can look jacked. You know what I mean? Like, I can have bags under my eyes. You know what I'm saying? But it's just the nail thing. And again, I know this when we show up and we're introducing ourselves and we're saying, hey, I want you to give me I want you to pay me for my work, but I also want you to give me thousands of your dollars for this incredibly important day. I mean, it's crazy. So we really have to show up and we have to present ourselves like, I've got it together. Okay, so this is the first meeting checklist. I know you guys are taking notes and stuff, but continue taking notes because here we go. Here we are. So these are just some questions that I ask, again, just so I can get to know the client, also so that they can get to know me. They can start feeling comfortable with me, and then it also breaks down a little bit of a wall. Because again, you're like, yeah, I'm trying to sell something to you. I'm trying to sell myself to you. You know what I'm saying? And so you want to break down a little bit of their wall. So it's like, I always ask, like, how long have you guys been together? That tells you a lot about the couple as well, right? How did he or she propose? I don't ask to see the ring anymore. I don't know. It's one of those things. I don't want anyone to, feel like I'm asking to see the ring because that's going to tell me how much more money I can get from them, So I always wait for them to show me, and 9 times out of 10 they will, and I'm like, oh, it's gorgeous, whatever. How many guests are you going to have? What's the wedding date? So these are all questions because we have to see, first of all, you may not know this stuff before you meet with them. Like, I just booked somebody this morning actually, but again, I've been doing this a really long time. So this is kind of how things like start to work. Her matron of honor contacted me yesterday and was like, she's getting married at the Georgian Terrace, and I do a lot of weddings there. She says she's getting married at the Georgian Terrace and this is her wedding date. Are you available? And I was like, yeah, I'm available that date, blah, blah, blah. We were talking on the phone. Her phone connection was awful. But I was able to get the bride's email address, right? And I emailed her and, anyway. But a lot of times you won't know this stuff before. So you want to ask what the wedding date is. Because, again, you don't want to spend all this time with somebody when you know you have another event that day, right? How many guests are there? You want to take notes for all this stuff. Actually, I'm going to send you guys... I have the checklist. I'll send that to you guys after this. But anyway, how many guests are you going to have? Because these are all questions that lead up to the proposal, right? So we want to know these things because this is how we're going to put our packages together. This is how we're going to price it, okay? So how big is your bridal party? Now, the reason why I ask, well, first of all, what's the wedding date? Obviously, we want to make sure that we're available that date, right? The other thing is, are you getting married in 2 years? I don't take clients anymore that are like, I have one client who I love and adore, and I worked with her for 2.5 years. But before then, like 2 years was really my cutoff. And now like a year and a half is my cutoff. I don't enjoy long engagements. And I know that sounds crazy, but if they have the money, you don't need that much time to plan. A lot of people have long engagements because they're trying to get the money together. Anyway, so what is the wedding date? I want to make sure that I'm available that date. Okay, great. I'm available that date. How many guests are you going to have? So I need to know how many guests you're approximately inviting. So of course they're not going to know, the difference between 175 and 145 people. It's not that big, but if they say, well, listen, we know a lot of people. So annoying. We know a lot of people. I'm, in my small town, like we just have to, we have to invite everybody, and they're like 600 people. Well, that shows you that you need to add in extra fees because you have to have that much more help, right? Because you have to have more staff that day, right? How big is your bridal party? Again, because you have to manage those people, okay? So some people are like, no bridal party. Some people are like, one. Okay, all these things factor into your pricing. How many vendors do you have, if any? Again, this is your opportunity to flex a little bit, right? So this is your opportunity to let them know. It's like to show, your resume a little bit, to show your experience, right? So, or even if you've never worked. So let's say, okay, how many vendors do you have, if any? And then you say, who are those vendors? Do you already have a photographer? Who is it? Let's say that they say Elle Danielle is my photographer. Elle Danielle is a photographer whom I love, and I work with her a ton. She's on my blog, my website, all over the place. Anyway, I love her. She's out of Tennessee. So let's say that they're like Elle Danielle, and you go, oh my God, I love Elle's work. It's beautiful. Even if you've never worked with Elle before, okay? I'm not saying to say that if you never have heard of them, but it's one of those things that gives you the opportunity, right? So you say, let's say they're like, you know what, actually, we only have the DJ, and it's Exquisite Sounds and Entertainment, right? You go, oh my God, Torin! Torin's great. Even if you've never worked with Torin, that's your opportunity to let them know. I know your vendors. I already know who they are, right? These are all opportunities, again, to flex a little bit. These are opportunities, sorry. I know I keep saying flex, but, those are all opportunities to really show, like, hey, listen, I know what I'm doing. I'm familiar with the industry. I'm familiar with these people. You get what I'm saying? And so always look for those opportunities when you're trying to book your bride and groom, because so much of this is trust, right? They have to trust that they're going to be giving us, that we're going to do the best with their money, okay? Also, in a second, I want to talk about the guest list and how you let people know how to do their guest list. It's like my favorite thing, and it's super dramatic, but whatever. Okay, do they have a venue? No. Oh, I don't have a venue. What's their dream venue? Again, this goes back to, I have always wanted to get married at Ventanas. What's your budget? Our budget's $15,000. Well, Ventanas might be outside of your budget. See what I'm saying? So again, these are all things that we need to know. Now, again, people get weird about their budget. Never let someone tell you that their budget is unlimited. Unlimited budgets don't exist. Okay? Even if it's a $200,000 budget. Okay, we still need to have a point of reference, right? So we need to kind of know what we're working with. The other thing too, when you're talking about budget with your clients, if they say, well, my dad's going to give me $10,000, don't add that into the budget. Do not add what parents or friends or work bonuses, don't add that into the budget, okay, until it's in their account. And that's just the truth, okay? You don't want to add that into their budget because you're dreaming. And as planners, I know this sounds weird because it's like, oh, we don't dream with our clients? No, I don't dream with my clients. Obviously, we walk through, we walk through what we're supposed to walk through. But I'm not going to dream up a $100,000 wedding when you have a $20,000 budget, if that makes any sense. Right, guys? So, again, if they say, well, right now, it's 25, or right now it's 15 and my dad's going to give us 5,000. Oh, is that 15 including the 5,000? They're like, yeah. Okay, so when is dad going to give that to you? These are all things that you need to know, right? Because we need to know what we're working with. Okay? This is what I talk about. This is going to the guest list. Okay? This is super, I always say it's dramatic. Because it's a little dramatic and people are like, oh, that's deep. And I'm like, it is that deep. Okay, sorry guys. I'm not going to go through this whole thing, obviously. How to build a wedding is one of my favorites. One of my favorite courses because it really goes through like the ins and outs of the day. Hold on. Oh, my computer is trying to. Okay. It's like, Summer, you are doing too much, sister. Okay. While it's loading. So this is what I do. So, okay, the guest list, excuse me, really runs the whole wedding. The guest list determines the budget. Well, it determines what we're able to do with the budget. Okay, so this is what I tell people. I say, okay, I'm going to do the budget real quick, and then I'm going to go into that, and then I'm going to open it again for questions. And I know that we're coming up to the top of the hour, so if anybody has to log off, I understand. I'm going to send you this, but don't. Because I got something for you guys. Okay, so again, establish a budget. Is that your final budget, or is there room? Again, sometimes people feel awkward saying, they don't want to spend $45,000 even though that's what their budget is. Okay, well, let's find a number that you're comfortable with because again, $10,000, that's a lot of $10,000, it's too much room. It's too much extra to work with, right? And so if they say our budget is $45,000, we want to spend 35, then your budget is 35, okay? And then, again, so much of our job is managing expectations. And so if they say, my budget is, okay, fine, our budget's 35, and then the bride or groom start to say, I really, really love this caterer. We're foodies. I love this caterer. And the caterer is more expensive. Okay, then we know that we have a little bit more room, right? Okay, it's not my job to spend your money. And I always tell my clients this. I always say, listen, it's not my job to spend your money, and you don't want to say it in a harsh way, but, you want to let them know, like, I'm not just trying to spend all the money that you have, you know what I mean? And so also it's kind of like without saying, I need you to be honest about your budget. That's really what that question means, or that's really what that statement is. It's like, it's not my job to spend your money. I just want to see how much room we have, so that we can get you what you want, right? What's the most, okay, you guys, this is the kicker. This is what I love, and this is what really establishes so much of how you move forward, okay? I always say, okay, well, what's the most important aspect of your wedding? And I don't prompt them. That's the only prompt I give. But what I'm really trying to figure out is where we're going to spend most of the money or more of the money, right? So let's say that they say, because food is always going to be a lot of money, okay? Let's say that they say, oh, well, I think I really want people to have a lot of fun. And you go, oh, okay, so then you start thinking about entertainment. Oh, do you guys want to have a band? Do you want to have a DJ? Then you say outside of that. And then if the bride's like, honestly, my dress. What happens is we know that we have to pick and pull from different places in order to make the budget work. This is something that we talk about a lot in the academy, is how to make the budget work for you. Okay, you as the client, as the planner. And what I mean by that, how to make the budget work for you. Again, we go back to my website. I love my website. I've worked very, very hard on all of those weddings, right? Sometimes people come to you and they have horrible taste. They just do, They have horrible taste and you're like, okay, great. Like, what am I going to do with this? How are you going to make the budget work for you? If you don't want to design your weddings, that's fine. Find a florist who's great at design as well, right? But you want to see how to make the wedding work for you so that, number one, how do you make a $35,000 wedding look like a $75,000 wedding? And that's something we talk about in the academy as well. We talk about design and, how to make these weddings really stand out and how to really, really work with these budgets that might be kind of tight. Okay, without spending our own money. Y'all don't need to be going into your pockets to make somebody else's dream come true. Because yes, our job is to make these amazing things happen and to make dreams come true, but not if we have to come out of the pocket. Okay, like if you're doing that now, stop it. Stop spending your own money on these clients because they don't get what they can't pay for. Okay, they do not get what they can't pay for. And then you say, what can you realistically afford? Again, that comes to, I don't know, we're kind of looking at, 75 or, whatever. Okay, well, what's realistic? Like, what are we really working with? And sometimes you really do have to ask a lot of these questions because, again, we need to know what the budget is. We need to know what the budget is, right? And again, a lot of people feel awkward. They feel weird. Sometimes, because you're in their pockets. You're talking about their money. So then they start to feel kind of weird about it, right? So again, we don't build a wedding based on dreams. We have to base them on reality. And I can only dream with my clients for so long. And again, that's why establishing the budget is so important. Because again, we have to manage expectations. And so what happens is if they say, this is what was happening with my student earlier, what I was kind of trying to explain is that they say, this is what I want and this is my dream. And what she didn't realize is that she is in the position to tell them, well, this is what you can afford, right? Because she has to manage the expectation because, again, there's this myth that as planners, we could just do any and everything, no matter what the budget is. And that's just not the truth, right? Again, if parents are going to help pay for the wedding, establish how much and when they'll receive it, right? And remember that everything affects your budget. So we're going to go to the guest list. So I always tell people to think of your guest list like a sinking ship. And I was going to say, I don't say this to everybody, but I do. I'm like trying to think of the last time I didn't tell somebody. I think it was my most recent wedding, or not my most recent, but the one before this last one. Because they only had 45 people and I'm like, cool. Like, bet, I don't care. So you have to think of your guest list like a sinking ship, okay? Like the Titanic. Again, I get that it's dramatic, but just try to follow me. So you're on the Titanic and it's sinking and you're like, oh my gosh, here's a life raft. Okay, I have room on this life raft. That's mom, dad, brothers, sisters, cousins, best friend, son, daughter, right? And then that's your list A. So if your guest list is a huge part of your wedding, right? So it's like if your couple is dying to get married at Ventanas, but right now their guest list is 300, which means they have to shave a little over 100 people off their list in order to be comfortable. This is the rundown, right? So that's your list A. You also want to tell them that they can stagger sending the invites, right? So let's say that they're doing that they're going to do a save the date. On a save the date, you just put the date and the city. You don't put the address. You don't put anything like that. The point of the save the date is to let people know this is where we're getting married and this is when. So start saving your coins, right? So don't plan a big trip to Italy because I'm going to need you to come to my wedding in Atlanta with your entire family, right? So what happens is you can go ahead and you can start sending a save the date out to your list A. Or if you want to take it a step further, you can go ahead and send the invitation to your list A. And again, your list A, they're your A list because most likely they're going to be there, okay? Then you find out, oh my God, look there's a little bit more room in my life raft. There's a little bit more room. Now I have some room for maybe some college friends or some people that I haven't seen in a while or talked to in a while or some cousins I haven't spoken to in a while, but I would really love for them to be there and I have some room in my boat, right? So that's list B. So let's say you hear from some list A people, hey, I can't make it. Okay, no problem. Now you know that you have a little bit of extra room to start inviting other people, okay? List C. Oh my gosh, wow, look, we have a little bit more room in the life raft. Okay? That is your parents' friends. Mom and dad are like, well, I gotta invite my friend from church, and you're like, oh, are you paying? You know what I mean? Like, whatever. Handle that however you want. But let's see. I always call them like your obligatory people. So it's if coworkers. A lot of times though, when you work in an office, your coworkers are you're closer. You spend more time with them than you do with your friends. So anyway, this is how I break down the guest list because it will do wonders for your budget, but also your clients will really appreciate it. And I'm telling you, you guys, every single time I do this, my clients come back to me. I think the least amount of people that my clients ever shaved off was like 50. That's a lot of people because guess what? Your guest list affects every single thing in your wedding, especially the budget. The thing I always say, I'm like, you have to feed all those people. Aside from having to feed everybody, that's extra linens, right? That's extra tables. That's extra, food, and it's a bigger cake, and it's all that stuff. And again, I think this stuff seems kind of simple or it seems kind of obvious, but it's not. And again, there's this myth or there's this idea or perception that as planners, we can just do anything. We can do a lot, but not at the expense of our sanity and our expense, right? Another key thing, and I promise you, this is the stuff that kind of sets apart the newbies, this is the stuff that really kind of lets your people know, like, oh dang, she really knows what she's doing. Remind them when they're ordering invitations, remember that each household gets an invitation, not each guest. Okay, so again, when I'm saying this, you're going to be like, oh duh. I can't tell you how many clients I've had who have called me and they're like, why do I have 60 extra invitations? I don't know. And I'm like, well, did you order one per guest or one per household? Right? Because it could be, 5 extra, Mr. and Mrs. McLean, and, and there are 5 people in the household. You know what I'm saying? So that's 5 extra invitations that you, excuse me, don't need to get. The venue, this is Ventanas that I've been talking about so much. And I'm just going to go over the venue and then I'm going to close it down for more questions. Okay. And you guys, I really want you to ask me questions. I know I'm like dumping this all on you because I get so excited, but okay. When you are looking for a venue for your clients, this is the stuff that you want to know, but also remember, I told you to do research. When you are doing research in your city, this actually goes for if you have like a destination wedding. So the first destination wedding I ever did was in Savannah, Georgia. It was so, anyway, I shouldn't even talk about that. It was really bad. It was like super amateur. But the clients, I still talk to them. It was 12 years ago. I don't know what my hair is doing, guys. Sorry. The clients, they love me. We're friends on Facebook. They're always messaging me. They have kids, anyway. So it was all good, but it was like super amateur moves. But I did this wedding in Delray Beach, Florida. And I needed to find vendors down there. And I didn't have any vendors. So what did I do? I went to some blogs. And then I started looking at my cities, right? I started looking at vendors in that city. The photographer who I ended up using, so dope. I still talk to her. She's referred business to me. It just was great. But again, I didn't know. And so it's kind of hard to put your name behind a vendor that you've never worked with, right? But you have to do a little bit of research. Real quick, I did a wedding in Indiana a couple years ago. The groom lived in Indiana. The bride lived in South Carolina. She was a doctor. And she was going to be moving to Indiana after the wedding. They were going to get married in Atlanta. That's where they met and went to school together and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so this one day they call me. We had already been planning for like 5 months, but we didn't have a venue yet because, anyway, it's a long story, but we didn't have a venue yet. And so I get a call and it left a message and they're like, hey, Cottrell and I have to talk to you in a little bit. And I'm like, oh man, I'm like, I'm in trouble. You know what I mean? Like, dang, I'm in trouble. Because Because normally when they're like, we need to talk to you, that's what happens. But anyway. So I call and I find out that the groom's father had just been diagnosed with like a super aggressive form of cancer. And they were like, we just need to know what to do. And the wedding was like, I think the wedding was in another like 8 months or something. And they were like, so what should we do? And I was like, you get married in Indiana in 2 months, because that was the only day that was open. And they were like, 2 months, can you do it? And they had the money in the bank. And I was like, I could do anything if you have all the money in the bank, you know? I mean, the budget, the money was sitting in their account. So anyway, so what I started doing was I started looking at blogs. There was this videographer who I was like following on Instagram, who I was like, he's so dope. But he was out of DC. There were like no videographers in Indiana that I liked. Like they all their work was like super lame. Like it was just like antiquated. It was super old. And again, in Atlanta, you know, we're big dogs. Like we do it pretty big there. And so I had this standard that I was like not finding in Indiana. And the same for photography. So I went ahead and I told the bride, I was like, this is the photographer I want you to use. And it was Elle Danielle, who I mentioned earlier. We flew her in from Tennessee. And then we had the videographer, we flew him in from DC. So what I did, and again, I know this probably sounds ridiculous, but, and also the florist was from Indiana though. And we had a lot of like FaceTime meetings and stuff, like the florist and I. But it was a big deal because sometimes you'll have grooms who want to see you fail. You know, they're like haters. And for whatever reason it is. And so they kind of give you a hard time. And I was just really nervous that it wasn't going to like pan out the way I really wanted it to. So the morning that the videographer flew in, he got in at like 6 in the morning to something real stupid. I went and picked him up at the airport. Like, yeah, he could take an Uber, he can rent a car. Nope. Because I want to put my eyes on him. Because I need to make sure, is he weird? Is he quirky? Does he, like, what's going on, right? Because I've already vouched for him to the point that the clients flew him in. They spent extra money, you know, on a hotel and all that stuff. I need to put my eyes on him. And the same with the florist, you know, so I'm the one who told them, I'm the one who brought all their vendors in. Anyway, so I really spent the day with the videographer because, you know, since I picked him up, I was like his ride everywhere. And again, I know that sounds crazy and I wouldn't do that all the time, but I really loved these clients and I really wanted to make sure that they had the best experience. And again, I'm bringing in someone that I don't know. I just follow on Instagram. And we all know that Instagram can mean, you know, it doesn't all have to be real. Anyway, and it was dope and it was amazing and beautiful and blah, blah, blah. Again, anyone with questions? And I'm gonna stop in a minute because I know we're kind of going over. And I can actually send this to you guys as well. But again, you want to know the capacity. What does the venue hold? Is there a separate ceremony for the reception? Is there a separate ceremony and reception room? That lets us know, you know, how much time we have to set it for the room flip and blah, 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 blah. Ask if there's a preferred vendors list. Do you have to stick to it? Again, we went over that. If the venue has a coordinator, make sure that they understand that you're in charge. Okay. So they might put a timeline together, but you know, your timeline is the master timeline. Are you allowed to bring in an outside caterer? You know, again, the outside caterer has to be licensed, blah, blah, blah. The bar package. Is it consumption or is it per drink or like an hourly? This is all stuff that you need to know. Again, this is stuff that not only do you need to know, but it also shows that you're an expert. Because consumption is, I suggest consumption when it's like, you know, if the bride and groom are like, hey, listen, 90% of our guests don't drink. Well, something to, you know, if it's like 90% of them don't drink, I'm like, do consumption. Consumption is how much the group consumes that night. Okay. Hourly, what happens is it's everyone who is 21 and over. My mom's never had a sip of alcohol in her life, but if she goes to a wedding and my dad hasn't had alcohol in like 40 years probably. But anyway, the point is that they don't drink, but if they do it based per hour, then they have to pay, then the couple has to pay for my parents who don't drink. Okay, so this is stuff that you need to know. Again, I can go into more detail in a little bit, but 9 times out of 10, so what happens is, you know, one of the reasons why consumption isn't always the greatest, something to take into account is that people are out of town, they got a babysitter, they're taking an Uber, so they're like, you know what? I had a hard week. I'm going to turn up a little bit. You know what I mean? The drinks are flowing. Okay, they just got a drink, $9, right? Because again, we don't do cash bars. We'll talk about that another time. But the drinks are flowing. Oh my gosh, my song just came on. They put their drink down on the table. They go out. 9 times out of 10, the wait staff comes. They pick it up. That's another drink. But again, this is the stuff that sets you guys apart. This is the stuff that you don't know until you know, right? You don't know until you're in the thick of it, sitting at a meeting with your clients, and they're talking about consumption and per hour, and you're like, I don't know what's happening. I don't know what's going on. Again, find out if they have restrictions on send-off materials, sparklers, floating lanterns, confetti. If they say no sparklers, then that's something, you need to know. You need to know this so that if your bride is like, the number one thing I've ever wanted in my entire wedding is sparkler send-off, well, this isn't the venue for you, right? And then again, Fridays and Sundays are typically less expensive days to get married. I'm going to stop sharing. And again, do you guys have questions? A bunch of you guys sent me questions, and I think we've touched on a lot of this stuff. So this is something that's exciting. I think there is a question popping up. Hold on. Sorry guys. Okay, let me get back to this. Oh, okay, you raised your hand. Hi.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Aisha.
Hi.
Hello. So I had, I'm not necessarily sure, I'm not big into technology and whatnot.
Sure.
But I didn't know how to put a question in the...
Oh, you're fine. Yeah, you're fine.
But there's a couple of questions that I did have I've been thinking about. And one is, what are some other effective ways to market and advertise?
To market and advertise, you said?
Yeah, like I was looking at the Knot and Wedding Wire, but What would you say?
Never spend your money on the Knot. Never. Okay. I don't know what it is, but the Knot, I have never, it's like an industry. It's like a thing that's known in the industry. You just never get a call. And they blow me up constantly. I get like 6 emails from them a week. I'm not exaggerating. And it's like 90% off. And I'm like, I still don't want it for 90% off. Okay. Wedding Wire. I used to advertise it. I think I still have a listing with them. But I would definitely look at something like Wedding Wire. I would look at Instagram ads or Facebook ads. Probably Instagram ads more. Because again, we're so attached to our phones, right? And social media. Another thing too, you don't have to be super like tech heavy, to put a good, ad together for Instagram. There's a thing called Canva, Canva. And then also for everyone, whether this is your question or not, write this stuff down, cause we can all learn from each other, right? So Canva.com is free, and it's a free online tool that helps you put like graphics and stuff together. It is so simple. You'll be like, oh, okay. And it'll even tell you like, here's the template for Insta story. Here's your template for Facebook. Okay. So that's something else I would look into.
Yes, I wrote that down. That's
okay.
Well noted.
Yeah. Oh, and the other thing too is I always say we don't pay to play, meaning like magazines. It's just, and again, I've learned all this stuff. This is why I'm telling you guys, I have definitely, I've spent money when I didn't need to, right? On magazine ads. And I'm like, oh, okay. Never got one call. Okay. Yeah. Yes, exactly. Canva is amazing. It's great. Okay. So sorry, what was your other question? You had other questions?
I did. Mm-hmm. And then, so I actually, I've been wanting to do this for years, and I had a friend in the church who actually handles their venue within the church, and she's really wanting to get it popping down there, and she's like, thinking up some really great ideas, and we've been brainstorming back and forth about how to start events, and because I do more creative work,
Sure.
and I had done things for the women's ministries,
Mm-hmm.
and she just got the first wedding there.
Oh, good.
So she wants me to do the designing, and this is just the centerpieces and things like that. Starting out, but the thing is that I don't have, and the budget was $300, and she
Mhm.
wanted to buy flowers.
Yeah.
So my thing was, like I have a couple of things here that I can use,
Mhm.
and I wasn't sure if it's okay to like dish out a couple dollars in the beginning, like maybe invest in like some vases, because I know this is something that I can repurpose and use
Sure.
for other events, as well as
Mhm.
like a sweetheart table,
Sure.
and things like that. What would you recommend? Do you think it's
So
okay to put that in the budget, or?
this is what I would suggest. I think having a couple things here and there isn't going to hurt. And again, because again, it's about how are we making it work for us. So
Right.
coming out of the pocket, like I used to have this gold sequin linen that, I mean, I made my money over and over and over by renting it out to people. But a lot of times people are like, oh, I don't want to spend, $120 on that linen. And I'm like, oh, well, you could just rent mine for $50, right?
Right.
But
Okay.
also it makes me look better because then the picture, the cake table has this beautiful sequin linen. So I would
Right.
say that that's okay to do. I wouldn't say kind of like I was saying at the beginning, like don't have that stop you. You know what I mean from doing that. Also, if someone says that they want live flowers, again, so much of this is managing expectations, and their budget's $300. That's when you have to get a little creative, right? So Costco sells flowers. You can actually order from Costco. Farmers market, they have flowers. And when you go to the farmers market, 9 times out of 10, you can also have them put together a couple arrangements for you. So, it's a lot of it is like, how do I make that money work? Right.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I'm at, because this is my first event, and this is a major opportunity for me to advertise. It's going to be very small, very intimate,
Mm-hmm.
50 people. I
Mhm.
was also thinking of buying some business cards
Uh-huh.
to set on the table, so that people like the centerpiece, they can pick up my business card, and do it that way as well. Um, so yeah, those are. Oh, I did have a couple of other questions
Mhm.
too. Now I was looking over like contracts.
Yep.
This is my first event, so it's probably not going to be a contract, just all word of mouth.
Sure.
What should and shouldn't be included in a contract?
So, contracts get pretty, contracts can get pretty tricky. On a very basic level, obviously it should have your terms based on what you're going to get paid, when you're going to get paid, when the event is going to be, who the contract is between, right? There should be a clause in there that shows you, that you can get out of it and how much time you have to get out of it, if they're able to get out of it. Contracts are pretty tricky, and you just have to make sure that it, you just like anytime that I've changed my contract, I've only changed it twice, and I regretted it both times. And it's because my contract really protects me.
Right.
And I got a little worried because I didn't want to like lose a client. This was like years ago, and I changed the time that they had to fire me if they wanted. So what happens is we step in, we do a ton of work, and then someone says, my aunt's friend's mom's cousin, said that she can do this. And so it's like I've done all the work, and my contract says that the final payment is due 2 weeks before the wedding. Now I've made it so that my final payment is a month before the wedding, because a lot of work happens the month before the wedding.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And one last question.
Sure.
So I was a bit concerned because money is such a sensitive topic,
Yeah.
But I do deal with, contracts and money. Right now I work at Comcast, so I'm dealing with numbers all the time.
Sure.
And negotiations.
Mm-hmm.
But how does that work in an actual, like this sort of relationship where it's like, okay, $25,000 to do your wedding. Do you load it into a card? Do they give you a card? Do you have a bank account where they transfer the money? How exactly does that transaction look?
Okay, so a lot of people, I'm also, okay, this is how I do it, because I don't want there to be any funny business. I don't want to be in charge of your $25,000 in my bank account. See what I'm saying? I don't want anything to happen. So this is how I do it. So they say our budget's $25,000. Okay, great. So what happens is we work through the things. I get proposals. They say, I send them proposals. They go, you know what? We love Elle Danielle. Yep, this is what we want. You let Elle Danielle, the photographer, know. Yep, they want to go ahead and book you. Elle gets the paperwork together. She sends them the final invoice.
Okay. So it's just straight through invoicing and then they pay it.
Yes. I have my clients pay like that, again, because there's so much pressure already, and it's just a very simple thing. Like I said, it's a very simple thing to just have them pay for it. And again, I know that some people do take the entire, amount of money and pay out of that. But again, the way that I like to do it is I send them invoices. A lot of people do it like that too, right? So again, I'll let the photographer know or whoever know this is the final budget. This is, they want to go with you, and then they'll send me an invoice or they'll send it to the client and copy me.
So tell me a bit about how an invoice would work. Is it like it's connected to like a Cash App, like you can pay me through Cash App, or you come and you can swipe
It just depends on how the how the vendor takes payments.
Okay.
So the vendors
now, as far as like me as the person who would be doing their centerpieces and the floral design, what would you recommend for me? Because again, this is my first event. I don't know. How exactly do you invoice?
So if I were you, I would go to Google I'd go to Google and I would type in invoice. Oh, or you can go to Canva. Seriously, listen, Canva is going to be your best friend, but type in invoice. They'll give you a bunch of templates. And if you don't find a template in Canva, go to Google, type in invoice, and you just want to put what you're going to provide. Right? So if you say you're going to do 6 centerpieces of gladiolas or 6 centerpieces of blah, 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 you want to put the quantity because you don't want to show up and you've done 6 centerpieces and they go, well, I thought I was getting 45 whatever. I thought I was getting 12 centerpieces. You knew we had 12, tables. Well, you can't afford 12 centerpieces, but this is what we talked about. Mm-hmm. Okay. So you want the invoice again. And also I work in proposals and then the invoice. So what happens is I don't do surprise invoicing. So let's say someone hires me for the day of coordination, okay? They hire me for the day of, great, perfect, wonderful. Then they start to ask me too many questions. I'm actually having that issue right now. The bride's like, again, it's about managing expectations. So the bride's like, I know you're just day of, but I'm wondering if you can help me. I don't mind answering questions here and there, but I'm not going to be, going to meetings for 2 hours and I'm your day of coordinator, right? So if something happens, you say, you know what, it looks like you might need a little bit of extra help, more help than we thought. Let me send you a proposal. So it should always start with a proposal and then an invoice, right? So the proposal is saying this is how much it's gonna cost. You can rework the proposal 100 times, right? Because then they can say, you know what, I love this, but I want to add this, I want to add that. Well, hey, look, your budget's only your budget's $300. So right now, this is the budget. Right now we're, if we add on those extra 4 tables, now the total is, $489, right? So we don't have to make it fit in their budget, right? We give them a proposal and then they can say, because again, it's about managing their expectations. So they can say, whatever, my budget's $300. And then you're like, okay. They're like, but I want 12 centerpieces. Well, you can only afford 5.
Okay. And you would tell them just like that, you can only afford 5.
I would say, well, right now, with the 5 that we have, we're already at 300.
Okay, that's better. Okay, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, I know. Sometimes I say things and it sounds kind of harsh, but but again, something I talk about a lot is like really being yourself. If you've seen any of my videos, like I'm ridiculous, but I'm really ridiculous. Like I'm like, I laugh a lot.
You can get away with that.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying? So it's like, you should really say it in a way that people understand it, of course, without being rude. But, if they're being insistent, you say, hey, listen, like if we can increase the budget, this is what we can do. Or we can do candles. And if you want to do a candle arrangement, then this is how much it's going to be. Well, no, I want flowers. Okay, well, right now, if we do 5 centerpieces, we're already at, $294.
Okay.
So yeah.
Now, I want to get back, and I'm sorry, guys, if does anybody else have questions?
No, not yet.
So as far as like the invoicing goes, I go to camp, I make them a template, I send over the proposal, they agree to the proposal, we finally got everything negotiated. Now I'm sending them the final invoice for them to pay. With the invoices, like how does that how exactly is it like connected to?
You can do PayPal. You can do PayPal. Okay. You can do. I wouldn't take a check unless it's like a certified check. I actually recently got paid with a certified check, and it was so weird, but it was certified, so I was like, okay, because I was like, oh, I take Apple Pay and PayPal and Venmo and Zelle. There are like 1,000 different ways to get paid, and Cash App, and they were like, I don't have any of that stuff. Can I pay you with a check? I was like, what? But anyway, yeah, go to PayPal and, you can set up a business account if you want. Again, that stuff is very simple to do. It's very, very simple to do that stuff.
Perfect. Yeah. This is great information.
Yeah.
This has definitely helped me. I just was been like so, like nervous and like, I don't know, I'm not a professional yet. I mean, I'm really good. I have great ideas and I know how to make it look good, but the actual, all the know-how behind the scenes is like not really my thing, So.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is we all start from somewhere, right? And I think that, again, one of the number one things, and I talk about this a lot, is that people are like, planners don't answer questions. Planners don't help. And again, that's why I started the Academy, because I'm like, I don't have a problem answering questions, and I don't have a problem walking people through what they're supposed to do, because people get married every single day. And so, a lot of the reasons why planners don't share information or they don't have online schools or mentorships and stuff like this is because, they're like, I don't want to make competition for myself. And I'm like, people get married all the time,
Right.
Do you charge a deposit? Okay, sorry. So, do you charge a deposit and then a set fee to charge clients, or would you suggest charging a percentage based on total budget? So so this is somebody's question, sorry. So do you charge a deposit and then a set fee to charge clients, or would you suggest charging a percentage based on total budget? I don't do the percentage thing. I personally don't like it. So my pricing goes from, again, I have a base price. And then I add on based on when the wedding's going to be, how big it's going to be, stuff like that, right? One thing that I suggest doing is finding out what is happening in your market, right? So you need to find out how much people are charging, right? You want to find out what people are charging in your area, because you don't want to be, you don't want to give, Arizona prices you don't want to give Arizona prices in New York, right? Do you collect a non-refundable retainer or deposit? Yes. So the deposit that I have, I collect a 50% deposit, and it is non-refundable 3 days after the signing. Because you know what I'm not going to do? And what we're not going to do? We're not going to get used, right, guys? Like, we're not going to sit up here and give our expertise and tell all these people all this stuff. And then they're like, we found their venue and we found their this and that. And you know what I mean? Like, yes, exactly. Like, we're not doing all this stuff. And then they say, oh, actually, I found somebody else. And what they're essentially saying is, you gave me what I needed and I found somebody else cheaper. Right? Yeah. So, okay, what I want to do real quick, you guys, and I'm telling you guys first, and I'm going to send an email about this too. Let me share this. I'm telling you guys first because you're on this, and then I'm going to send an email out after this. But because I don't know if you guys have seen any of the videos like from my clients, like from my students and stuff, but basically I do one-on-one coaching right now, but I'm not going to be doing one-on-one coaching anymore after this because it's really time-consuming, and I'm working on some other projects, and so it's really hard for me to do the one-on-one coaching. So with the Academy, I'm just going to do a quick overview of what the Academy is. Again, it's one-on-one teaching. Again, it's kind of like what you just heard, like when people ask questions or whatever. I go through the entire lesson, but while we're going through the lesson, of course, like I said, like you can ask me questions. A lot of my students bring up the issues that they're having currently in the moment. right? So a lot of my students either have, they're already established, or, they're like, I don't have anything. Okay. So the other thing too, a lot of people are like, why can't I join the academy? And I'm like, oh, because it's not open enrollment, right? So you can only join the academy when it's open enrollment. So this is what's happening. The academy is originally $12.97, but until the 28th. I'm like, I shouldn't even be, I feel like I shouldn't even say this, but whatever. Here we go, guys. Until the 28th, the academy is $4.97. But after the 28th, enrollment is closed, and I'm not offering one-on-one training anymore. At the end of it, you will get, again, you get your certification. And to be honest about the certification, again, it's one of those things. It's in order to flex. It's something for your resume. And you're saying, I went through formal training. Because a lot of people will ask, a lot of people are like, hey, have you ever gone to school for this? And I hate when people ask that question, because you're like, a lot of these online schools or these college courses, they're not taught by people who look like us, you know what I mean? Or the weddings are from like 1992 and the work isn't current, right? And so that's another reason why, like I said, like I do one-on-one coaching, and okay, this is the last thing. I just had to decide if I was really going to offer this or not, but I am. So I only have 15 slots. And another reason why I'm only doing 15 slots is because the first event that you have booked after the academy, I'm going to walk you through. Okay? And so like one of your questions was about the contract. Well, in the academy, you get a copy of the contract. So my contract has been drafted by my attorneys, and I make changes to it every time I have another issue. Right? So, excuse me. I have a Bridezilla that pops up, and I'm like, oh, I'm like, excuse me, guys. I have a Bridezilla pop up, and I'm like, nope. What I'm going to do, I'm going to go to my attorney, and I'm going to have them change this, right? Because, again, I need to be protected. So it's an airtight contract. So you get the contract. You get proposal examples. You get invoice examples. Again, it's just tons of tips and things like that you get. And again, it's from someone in the industry who is actually working and who is currently working and doing, and doing this. What I'm going to do is, I haven't emailed this out. You guys are the first ones to get it, but I'm going to drop this in the chat. The chat is over to the side. Let me see. I'm going to drop this in the chat so that you guys can see it. Let me see. And this is to everyone. So, sorry, excuse me. I'm going to be emailing everybody this in just a little bit. But like I said, you guys have the link first. But one more time, it's only 15 slots because, again, I'm doing the one-on-one training. But after the 28th, I'm not offering one-on-one training anymore. And also it's closed enrollment. So you can't even... you can't even enroll if you wanted to. And then again, the biggest thing is the first event that you book after the course, I'm going to walk you through it, right? So if you're like, and again, there's no time limit on that. So I'm going to walk you through, and you could say, Summer, I'm having an issue with this contract. Can you help me with this or whatever? I have a question about that. That's what these next 15 people are going to get. What questions do you guys have for me?
Can you hear me?
Yes. Who is this?
Okay.
Yes. Ariel?
It's Ariel.
Okay.
So you said you're going to be doing closed enrollment. Will you open back up again eventually? Or?
I don't know. I'm working on a big project. Okay. I don't want to say no in case it's like next year or something like that, but I'm working on a big project. And so, again, that's why the one-on-one mentoring isn't going to be available. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, then. Thank you.
Uh-huh. What other questions? Let's see. Yes. So, Brianna, I am going to message you about that. Just some more questions about how to gain, let me see. Let me see, recommendations and tips on how to get their foot in the door with finding internships and mentorships and employment. Something about that. I mean, again, it's one of those things where you can go ahead and you can message planners in your area and see what they're open to. Again, that's one of the reasons why I started the academy, is because a lot of people aren't willing to share information. They're not willing to have an intern. There was a woman who I spoke to maybe like a month ago, and she was telling me that she was an intern for 8 years with this wedding planner in Atlanta. And she had to sign a non-disclosure or a non-compete. So anytime she leaves her for 5 years after she leaves, whenever that is, she can't do her own business. And I'm like, what's that about? You know what I mean? Like, that just sounds mean. Like, to me, that just sounds cruel. That doesn't make any sense. But anyway, any other questions? Any other questions from anybody? And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to log off. Oh, go ahead. Yes. Someone know? Okay. So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to send over, like I said, I'm going to email the recording out, and I'm going to email this link out to you guys too. And again, it's just the first 15 people. And class is similar to this, except for it's one-on-one, and everything is broken down. Let me see. Everything is broken down. Let me get out of that. Again, by course. And so one of my students right now, she's already I don't want to say pretty super established, but she's already kind of established. She's in Canada, and she's working on a couple events right now. And so a lot of our classes are centered around the work that she's currently doing. And that's it. All right, you guys, I'm not going to keep you too much longer. Actually, I'm not going to. Oh, yes. Who raised their hand? Let me see. iPhone, you raised your hand. Okay, let me see. Okay. Hi. Did I unmute you? No, you were still muted. Unmute. Okay, yes, you raised your hand. Hello, are you there? No? It says iPhone. I don't see your name. Yeah, you muted yourself. You're unmuted now. But I can't hear you. Do you want to leave your message in the chat box? Oh, there you are. Hi. But I still can't hear you. I still can't hear you. Do you see are you plugged in somewhere? I can see you, but I can't hear you. And you're unmuted. Okay, so let's do this. I'm going to have you, because it looks like we're having like a little bit of a technical thing. So I'm going to have you, you can send me a DM, and then I'll answer your question there. And that's it. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. I just can't hear you. Okay. But send me a DM, mysimplyperfect.com. I'm assuming that's how you're here. So anyway, well, thank you guys so much. Like I said, open enrollment ends on the 28th, and the one-on-one coaching won't be available anymore. And also, I won't be offering to walk through. That's not going to be part of the package, is walking you through your first event. And that's it. Thank you guys so much for joining, and I hope to see you soon. Okay, bye.